Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Mike Honeycutt, Product Marketing Manager at Corero Network Security. I'm really excited today because we're going to dive into how TierPoint is leveraging real-time true mesh DDoS protection to enhance their security across their network and deliver unmatched service availability. But before we get into that, Paul, you're our special guest today. Maybe you can introduce yourself and TierPoint to the audience.
Thank you. So I am the Chief Information Security Officer for TierPoint. We are a large MSP working into a large MSSP. We have 40 plus data centers around the contiguous United States, and we've become one of the largest hosting providers for high density co-location for machine learning and AI integration. So it's been quite a few years, quite a growth in our business models, and I'm happy to be here with you. Corero plays a big part in protecting our client infrastructure, so I'm happy to be on board with you today.
Love that, man. We're happy you're here. You dropped some great buzzwords early on, especially dropping the AI. You have to, that's like essentially, you have to drop the AI early in the chat to keep people's interest. So let's dive into it. So you talked about Corero and how essential we are. Maybe you could talk about how our DDoS protection has transformed security across your data centers and how you're using it today.
It has. So one of the things when we were doing the bake-off from our old DDoS infrastructure is one of the things that was important to me is that we needed a way to have contiguous protections across a very large infrastructure. And being an MSP is different than having your own business that I need to protect. So if I was the CISO of one hospital, I may have multiple hospitals and clinics, etc. But I'm basically looking after one network infrastructure, however broad it is, however flat it is. I have a single purpose. But as an MSP, I have thousands of clients. And those thousands of clients are multiple verticals. So I need to be aware of HIPAA and high trust, and I need to take into account PCI and all the other compliance layers and security layers that go around having clients that are in a broad growth area. And I mean growth area. All of our clients are growing in some way. And especially as new technologies come out and we shift our business, it was important to me to have a DDoS infrastructure edge protection that we could easily incorporate into our security orchestration and remediation protocols. So we really fast-tracked Corero in our lab testing, and we were really impressed with the results. Our mean time to mitigations with our old system was approximately 6 minutes, and we had a very expensive NetFlow third party that was integrated. There were things and layers to it that made it somewhat cumbersome. We kept the lights on, but it was cumbersome. Corero now, our mean time to mitigation is seconds. And we no longer have to have third-party NetFlow. Your APIs have integrated directly into our orchestration program. It just gives us a real holistic view of our edge protections. And we can take that data and incorporate it and do comparisons and enrich our pipelines to make the entire TierPoint infrastructure that much more secure. And the value of being within TierPoint versus what we think the other MSPs are offering is that you have a baseline level of protection native. You just get it. If you're in my data centers and you get your data and your IP space from us, you have a level of protection that we give you for free.
I love that. I mean, and so my next question, you've already kind of touched on it. You talked about, the uptime, right? We talked about the time to mitigation. That's a drastic reduction in time, right? But the other thing you said that caught my ear was, ease, right? Just sort of the capability of onboarding and the use of it. Can you talk to specific metrics that you've looked at, when you were comparing Corero against a competitor, and even today, how you're justifying the investment in the solution, and then also speak to perhaps like just the ease of use of it, because you're a busy guy, you're managing a lot. How important is that ease of solution to you?
It was important, and it was even less important to me than my security operations and engineering team. So I was impressed with Corero from a price and a deployment standpoint, and all the things as a business leader I have to drive up to my board of directors and get budget approval for. The engineering teams and my security operations group were really impressed with how easy it was to get the Corero infrastructure deployed. And once we started testing it, we ran our incumbent systems and the Corero systems with each other live for almost 30 days. And what we found was that, or what was reported back to me, was that the Corero infrastructure was literally picking up attacks that our older infrastructure wasn't. So when we think about you don't know what you don't know, and what am I blind to, the infrastructure and the setup that we had with Corero and having your 24/7 SOC help to monitor and do auto mitigation, it took a lot of the pressure off of my team, who were used to, you have an attack, it's all hands on deck. This might be the worst moment of our clients' lives. We want to make sure that we keep the lights on. We want to make sure that we do everything in order to mitigate this in a very quick and ever-changing attack surface. So the level of DDoS attacks and the sophistication and the types of attacks that are coming out now, we've never seen before. So having a partner that is able to keep up with that technology, who's able to make enhancements, and most important, who is able to take feedback. So we have a really great partnership with Corero, and I don't use the word partnership loosely. It's really turned into a partnership. We say, we like this, we really want this, we can help enhance this, this feeds into our infrastructure. And instead of getting, whoa, that'll be 4 releases from now, and we'll talk about it in 6 months, in 6 hours, our teams are working and enhancing and just making changes that, again, we as a large MSP with a large infrastructure, here's the things that we need to have in place, and can you help us help you? And the answer's always been absolutely, let's roll up our sleeves and get it done, which is refreshing.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. And perhaps you're kind of already going there now, but perhaps you can go into, because the title of this is this True Mesh. Is that what you're referring to when you talk about this True Mesh DDoS solution? Is this sort of the partnership and the ability to give feedback and to build upon something and make and improve? Is that what you mean by that? And can you explain it a little bit more?
And we'll use the term mesh in a couple different ways. So your technology and your topology allows your boxes to speak to each other and to help offload traffic and put it where it makes the most sense. We want to protect our clients as close to the clients as possible. Based on that, your infrastructure, your technology tied to my infrastructure especially, allows your boxes across my large dark fiber rings to help load balance and really communicate with each other, so that if we see an attack in Spokane, Washington, the boxes are queued and ready and looking for load balancing in Jacksonville, Florida. Clear across the country, we know what's coming in, we know what's happening at that time, and we're not writing scripts and signatures twice for 2 regions or 8 times for 8 regions. The boxes are smart enough to understand, here's an attack we see in this infrastructure, where does it make the most sense to balance this attack traffic? Very quick mitigation, very quick return to normal, and the systems are back up and running with very little latency, and we haven't had any, knock on wood, everybody watching this, knock on wood, we haven't had downtime with this robust infrastructure working the way that it works. And also the mesh can be thought of as, how is our team working together? And I said partnership a moment ago, and we value, we're too big and we move too fast. We're a very large, small company when it comes to our technology and security stack. So based on that, we really wanted a partner that we meshed with, and a group that we could say, again, here's where we're going, here's the things we're doing. We have a large security orchestration platform that we're in the process of launching. We've been developing it, using it internally for years. When we introduced that to Corero and said, here's how we want to ingest this, the teams immediately got to work. We did some whiteboarding, and we spent some time in Scotland, and I brought our engineering teams, and these teams worked together. And then my operations team went out and helped redesign the infrastructure to make sure that it was the most efficient for your technology stack. And it's been a win.
Wow. I mean, it's a great use case, right? And a great way to tell the story. I want to pivot if we can. Now, last year we came out with the core platform, right? So I want to talk about what core means to you today and how TierPoint is leveraging core, or how TierPoint plans to leverage core. And I know maybe some of the details can be a little vague, but maybe you can kind of give an overview of it.
Yeah, so your core platform is literally your orchestration engines, and how does it tie things together? How does it do analytics? How does it understand the attack profiles? We count on your analytics and your infrastructure in order to provide a few things. A, to give us an API into our dashboards. I don't want 12 dashboards that my SOC is clicking through. We want a single pane of glass. And I want that single pane of glass to show me every metric that it can. And ideally, I want it to be a stoplight, red, yellow, green. What's going on? Is there something that's not within normal limits? And how do we address that first? How do we prioritize what is happening at our edge protections? And that's what core is giving us. And again, it was important that I not just keep, there's a lot of security programs out there, and the market is flooded. And if I have to take every one of those dashboards and make them their own dashboard, whether they be web-based or whether they have an agent, again, my SOC is wasting time clicking through multiple screens to try and get that information. I want one source of truth. I want a correlation engine, which is what we have internally, that takes all of these diverse data feeds, all of this attack traffic, all of the threat feeds. It makes it something that's holistic, and it makes it something more than holistic. It makes it something actionable. Without the ability to act upon what we're seeing, the systems don't matter. An orchestration engine that doesn't orchestrate isn't really buying us a lot of value. So sure. After looking at your core infrastructure and how your system is feeding threat analytics and working with our system, it became very quickly a perfect fit.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for going into detail there, and the value there seems immense. Maybe we can talk about moving on, like just sort of how availability and you being able to see the observability of across all this single plane, as you said. What does that mean to an MSP in general? Just sort of having availability across your network, and then how does that matriculate down to your customers, and how do you speak to that?
So, and we do speak about it quite a bit. So we offer 100% uptime. I mean, it's table stakes at this point. We have a large, robust infrastructure. We have multiple providers built into every one of our data centers. There is no expectation that there's going to be downtime. So having the availability and having our sales infrastructure be able to go out and say, honestly, you have a level of edge protection that is not only best of breed, but it is feeding the internal infrastructure so that we can do smarter correlation. We can understand the attacks that much quicker, that much better. And we can feed that back with Corero having eyes on glass 24/7, just like TierPoint has eyes on glass 24/7. The two groups being able to share attack metrics, to look at something that's happening in the marketplace. Have we seen this before? Is it your typical low and slow or TCP/AC attack, or is it something that's new and we haven't seen it in the past? One of the things that my engineering and operations teams really liked about the Corero platform is that it errs on the side of caution. So what does that mean? It means to us that you are going to do challenge responses and you are going to have some level of protection, whether you've seen an attack in the wild or not. And that's valuable, because when I have to go back and explain to my customers, here's why latency happened, here's the level of attack that we had. I've never had a customer not be understanding, but I've certainly had customers who just don't care. I pay you to keep the lights on. And so right. On the back end of that, there's very little room for negotiation. We need an infrastructure that's robust, and we need an orchestration engine and a technology partner at the edge that's going to help with that level of protection. And that's what we believe that we found with the Corero partnership.
That's awesome. And I want to ask you about a story that you've told before that I just think is really intriguing. You've got customers that leverage AI technologies, and we know that AI is sensitive to latency. Can you kind of retell that story? I know that you know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, of course.
Sort of, just sort of impress upon the audience of how important it is to have that fast mitigation, especially in terms of AI?
So because of our infrastructure and because of how Corero is designed, we can protect up to just 2 IP addresses when we have to swing mitigations. And I'll say it again, 2 IP addresses. The older technology, I would have to swing an entire /24, and most TierPoint clients don't have their own /24. You get 8 IP addresses or 16 IP addresses as part of your standard onboarding. So what that meant was that we called it the noisy neighbor. I don't think I invented it. I hope I did. We called it the noisy neighbor clause, where if client A is getting attacked, a DDoS attack, because they are the target, but you happen to share that IP space with them, and we had to swing mitigation, we were now introducing latency and network propagation. We were introducing a negative experience for customers who were not the source or were not the target of that attack. So by being able to swing small IP space with Corero, we've made a huge amount of efficiency in how we protect those clients, until we found out that a large AI client was the target of a large attack. Our systems automated moving from the regional to the larger scrubbing boxes because of the volume. So we shifted them from one data center in Texas to another data center in Texas, not far away, very low latency. So for taking the attack traffic to the large Corero scrubbing box, scrubbing that traffic and sending it back to the client, we had about 18 milliseconds of latency, 18 milliseconds. So when I got on the call with the client, he said, we had a large attack. And I said, I know. And we protected you. You're welcome. You know, we did exactly what it's supposed to do. He said, no, you don't understand. 18 milliseconds stopped our AI models, machine learning models, dead in their tracks. And it took me a minute to really comprehend 18 milliseconds. He said, yeah, we need well below 10 milliseconds of latency for these computational exchanges to be flawless going outside for northwest traffic or north-south traffic. We kind of thought about it and went back and forth. So I called Corero and I said, I think the solution here is to, you know, anything up to a 10 gig attack that this box is going to handle natively. We want to test putting a box right in the rack of this client and isolating again down to a very small IP space and protecting the client individually. So instead of an on-demand protection, which is created to keep TierPoint's lights on, we move that client into an always-on protection, where now the algorithms are learning what is that client's traffic, what pain points does that client have, and you have a dedicated box that keeps your lights on with very little latency. So Corero sent us a box, we did the testing, and we have on top of that client rack within that data center infrastructure, we have 5 or 6 milliseconds worth of latency on a full-on attack. And the client was happy. Corero got a sale. We kept everybody in the loop. And by the way, Corero made it very easy. We just add this serial number to your license pool and we see it on our same dashboard. It's just one more node on our dashboard. There's nothing magic to manage it. There's nothing except boom, one more green light that pops up on the dashboard, and now we have a client being protected. So of course, the sales reps are, well, we want to sell it to all of the AI apps, and you know, here's a new business model. You didn't know what you didn't know yesterday, but now we know. So let's go to market and figure it out together.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So we got a question. So as an MSP, what's the best method or means and way to communicate the value of DDoS protection to an end customer? What have you found to be the most successful?
So 2 layers to that. As a security officer, my most successful approach with clients has been, we just give it to you. Like, I understand that's counter to sales and driving revenue, but there is a certain amount of value to, by virtue of being my client, you have a level of protection that we just take natively and you can take for granted. There's just an inherent risk to any data center or any data pipelines, and DDoS for hire is very cheap now. So it doesn't take much for you to upset somebody or for somebody to go put their credit card on a dark website and be able to launch all these dumb IoT boxes at your IP address. So I enter those calls with, like, we have this. This is a problem and we got it. What else can we help you solve? Because this problem that you believe you have is really not a problem with TierPoint's infrastructure and Corero at the edges. Let's look at all the other things that are security pain points for you, because that edge infrastructure is covered. But there's more to it than that. Take the edge protections that we have with Corero and now think about all of the hundreds of thousands of IP addresses, and how are we moving traffic and balancing traffic across the United States? And how are we making decisions about which region is under attack? What are the attack values? How can we then go to those clients and say, I'll talk to you all day about the overall protections that is an on-demand protection methodology, and you still have some risk there. You don't have the risk of no DDoS protections, but there's still risk because, again, we tune those algorithms to protect 40 plus data centers. Moving you into an always on, we can isolate a subset of IP addresses. We can learn exactly, again, where your pain points are. What industry are you serving? Are there other algorithms we need to introduce into your protection because you're a hospital system or you're a large credit card provider? How large is your net that you're casting out? That interruption of service of your pipeline is really going to impact you. And those conversations almost always lead to a better understanding, but they almost always lead to, let's have that next level discussion. Let's bring in the sales engineers and let's see where this is going and why, because now we understand the difference and now we see the value add.
Thank you for that, man. That's awesome. Okay, so DDoS attacks, we're talking about that, but what other things as an MSP are you looking at, particularly security challenges that are sort of are on your radar, and ways that or how would you be looking to solve these things in the coming future?
Yeah, so in my perfect world, the things that keep me up at night are less DDoS attacks, volumetric attacks now, but a lot of the attacks are geared towards the application stack. So layer 7 protections, really understanding how can we fine tune and really understand that TierPoint as a provider and our clients are an application heavy infrastructure. As more and more business moves to a SaaS model, those application stacks and the third parties that support them matter more and more. So being able to protect your website, keep it from getting defaced, and to stop that level of attack at the edge, which a good portion we get natively with the Corero infrastructure, there's 2 more layers that come into play at that point than that a standard DDoS protection is not affording you natively, which we like about Corero's err on the side of caution. It doesn't have to know exactly what the attack is to offer a level of protection. And second to that is that there's been a shift in the threat market where Russia was the number 1 attacker, and then it moved to China, and now there's a balance again. So being able, but these countries never attack from their own IP space unless they're trying to make a point. So these are hijacked IPs, and looking to understand in seconds, even milliseconds, how malicious is that traffic knocking on the door? How many bots are knocking at the door, and how do we prevent any systems downstream from answering that door? It all comes into a holistic security protection. So we have Corero, and then we have Fortinets and FortiGates, and down the stack we offer levels of protection that we hope make us best in breed, or one of the best in breeds, in order to make sure that we can correlate all that attack data and come up with a holistic approach that isn't just this cut and dry edge protection. Once it moves into our core, it's not just this cut and dry core protection. It's a holistic approach, and we can take all the telemetry data from Corero, from Fortinet, from Cisco, from the switches, from Juniper, and all of it tells a bigger story for the threat hunters and for the SOC to review and say, now it's a pattern. If these 3 attacks happened over 45 days, no technician is going to remember. I think I saw this 30 days ago. Maybe I saw the same thing 45 days ago. I'm certainly not going to remember that. But if all those attacks happen in 1 second, all the red lights go off. Everybody knows that it's all hands on deck. There's a security event. So having regression testing and having all of these other algorithms that feed into making this holistic protection is really magic and really gives us a better lay of the land and a much better chance of protecting ourselves and our clients from a large group of attacks.
Yeah, well, I hope with Corero you're not losing much sleep and it's not keeping you up at night. So
I don't see
So we do have another question around the onboarding and how you came to find out about Corero's solution. So the onboarding of the solution and then how you came to find out about Corero's solution.
So in general, there's not a ton of DDoS players in the market. And we narrowed it down very quickly based on price and features and all the marketing, the marketecture. We can do this, we can do that. We understand this, we understand that. Okay, we get it. So when the team started looking at, again, the ease of deployments, and we had already had a trust relationship with Corero leadership. It was, we hadn't tested you before. We hadn't seen your direct protections in the marketplace. So when we brought them into the lab, we fast tracked it. It literally, instead of going through 6 months of testing, we brought a couple different vendors into the lab. We networked everything up and saw the same attacks across multiple protection systems. And again, Corero was picking up attacks and offering protections that other players in the marketplace simply weren't. So from an engineering and operational standpoint, there was a big stamp of approval. Secondary to that, when we said, we like your technology, what is the onboarding process? How long is it going to take me to get these boxes? There's a merger of big iron and network topology and virtual machines, and it communicates with our Juniper infrastructure. So how, explain it to me. Like I'm 5 years old, explain it to me. I want to make sure that I'm making the best decision possible. And the Corero engineers came back and said, well, we're going to have the boxes set up. We're going to deploy them. You set them up in your lab again, but this time in a production environment. We're going to help tune them and hold your hand. And they did everything that they said they were going to do. Not that my engineers and operations folks don't have the ability. We have some very highly skilled DDoS protection engineers in this facility, or all of our facilities. But having Corero come in and say, we're taking the heavy lift and your team is going to learn, it's going to be teach the teacher while we get these deployments done, up to and including, here it is plugged in, here's the IP, it lit up, boom, you're on our dashboard. It was a very smooth process, and it was something that we appreciate. And now that we're getting more Corero boxes and we see the business model in putting one on top of client racks and things along that line, boom, it's just a very easy, it's a much quicker path to deployment.
Awesome. That's really good to hear. And by the way, I use Explain Like I'm Five almost every day because I talk to engineers and try and understand exactly what they're saying to me. So I love that phrase. All right, I'm going to give you the last word and let you say any sort of parting advice that you would have for MSPs looking at, to evaluate DDoS solutions, any sort of advice that you may have for them, or how that they can best differentiate themselves with the DDoS solution.
And we all compete in the marketplace, but there's a couple layers to that. Number one, I said it earlier, as an MSP, MSSP, we have unique needs that an individual company might not have. We not only have unique needs, but we have terabits worth of data coming in from around the country. We aggregate that data. We need a solution that is going to protect not only our clients, but let's face it, as an MSP, keep the lights on and keep yourselves out of the paper. So by choosing the right provider and vendor for these edge protections, you're really doing yourself a favor looking at a company that can become a partner. And so many companies throw that out. I get sales leads on email that here's our partnership. You're not a partner. I've never even seen you. We've never tested you before.
Yeah.
Partnership takes trust and takes time to grow. And so I can tell you firsthand that working with Corero has become a genuine partnership. So as an MSP, we have a protection scheme that encompasses 40 plus data centers. But that same protection scheme, having a partner that is looking at this 24/7, making recommendations, and then helping you grow this into individual slices of clients who need more or want more, that's something that you absolutely have to configure. And whether you have robust dark fiber like TierPoint, or whether you're just doing BGP swings each time, having that turnkey level of protection at the edge is something that your clients are really going to see value in. And I highly recommend that you not only get it up and running, but that you talk about it. Make it part of your sales narrative. Don't just make it an afterthought. Talk about the virtue and value of having a level of protection as an MSP that others in the marketplace don't have.
Love it. Love it. Well, Paul, man, 30 minutes flew by.
You did.
That. Yeah. So I knew this would be engaging and I knew it would be fun. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I want to thank the audience for coming and listening today. You can learn more about TierPoint and Paul, or from Paul, in our case study that we've published. It's free to all the attendees today. You can download it and learn about TierPoint's study and how they're using our solution today. Again, thank you all for joining. Thank you, Paul, for coming in and speaking today. It's an absolute honor. And we can't wait to catch you next time. If you have any questions, visit Corero.com, reach out to one of our specialists, and we'd be glad to talk to you. Thank you, Paul. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me. Everybody be safe.